The place of the police force in any society can't be overemphasized. Not only do the police prevent crime, they maintain law and order, ensure public safety, among other things. Let's just say a well-functioning police force enhances security, builds public confidence, and contributes to a stable society. But for many Nigerians, their perception of the Nigerian police is generally mixed. Many Nigerians express concerns about the police effectiveness, its integrity, and concerns about its relationship with citizens. What is responsible for this perception, and what must be done to address this? Tonight, we speak with the head of an agency that is charged with the responsibility to provide the critical needs of the Nigerian police force and its institutions that would ensure the overall improvement and efficient discharge of the duties and responsibilities. Our guest is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, Mohammed Sheidu. Thank you for being here and accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, so let me take it from the top. Help us understand the mandate of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund.
Nigerian Police Trust Fund is an intervention agency, an act of parliament that came to help the Nigerian police force, where our mandate is to provide training, equipment, purchase of equipment, basically anything welfare-wise that's meant to help boost the morale of police officers for them to effectively discharge their duties, which is to protect and serve Nigerians as a whole. So we look at it as anything that helps the police officer function better, more effective, more efficient. Those come under the umbrella of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. The police at itself as a whole cannot be able to do all of this. So the Parliament, the government looked at it and created this trust fund for us to be able to enable, complement and supplement these efforts for the police force.
So I can say you work with the police force.
We work with the police force, yes.
So how do you identify where you come in?
So what things we do is we have like the budget needs from the Nigerian police force. They have like a needs assessment, which whereby maybe their own budgetary allocations cannot cover. They also send that to us to say, okay, can you help us look into these aspects, training facilities, purchase of equipment, anything most that they cannot cover, we also look into.
So how do we differentiate what they do and purchased from what you do and you purchase?
We work hand in hand. Everything at the end of the day goes to the same end user, the Nigerian. So most times what I've noticed before coming on board and which we've still done is that you might see, maybe you see some vehicles on the car, you see donated by the Nigerian Police Trust Fund or a police station that we have done, refurbished or actually built from scratch, you see donated by the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. So those type of instances, we actually go and maybe brand those assets.
Okay. Help us understand how your funding goes.
We have 0.5% of the federal allocation, FAC, but that actually has been in contention before I even came on board. Rivers State actually took the trust fund to court in 2022, which we're still actually trying to get away with now. We also have a 0.05% that comes from the net profit of all companies operating in Nigeria. Then even as citizens, donations from both international and local companies, organizations are accepted by us, gifts, bequests. So if you look at it as a citizen and you want to do something to help the policing in probably your environment, we as the trust fund can receive such. Even CSRs from companies on the whole, we can also receive that.
Okay, so because I think when we discuss or talk about the issue of funding for the police, funding, when we say the kind of police we have, a large point and part of the problem, a lot of people say, is the issue of funding. And I think that's where the idea for the trust fund came up from. But just as you said, gifts can come in. And we do know that to a large extent, some people will say they do give gifts to the police. You watch videos or TV, you see the governors here.
Yes.
Will we say it's easier for it to come through the agency for accountability, or how would you?
I would believe so. Thank you for actually mentioning that. For accountability, because one of the things we also mandated to do is actually public audited accounts. So as you said, for transparency issues, it would make sense if you channel those things to the police trust fund for the police, because we are actually charged to actually public audited accounts are meant for public viewing. So if it comes to transparency and accountability, we have that actually going for us. So for private citizens to come in and look at, I want to donate, you know that your things that you have donated or monies that you might have spent are channeled appropriately the way you wanted it to be channeled.
Okay, but outside those, are you getting much donations from people?
Not, because one thing coming on board is to actually go out more. Okay. So people actually know that this is what the trust fund is here for. It has been established for this, and you as private citizens, even companies, are allowed to do this. So there has to be public, more like town crying into what the trust fund is mandated to do. So the more we engage the public, the more we can get receivables from these agents, these companies, and private citizens as a whole.
Okay, but this agency has been on ground for over, 10 years?
No.
How long?
2019 was when the Police Trust Fund was established. It came on board with the Police Act in 2019. And even for the first 2 years of the trust fund establishment, it wasn't functioning as it should. So if we say we really just kicked off, and one other thing is like it was an act that was even established for 6 years. Me personally, I feel policing in Nigeria, because I come from a police background, policing in Nigeria is an over 4-decade problem. And we cannot have a trust fund coming for just 6 years to solve a problem that's over 40 years. But so far, there have been places where you can see the effect of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. And one of my mandates is to actually make it more clear and let it be more visible what the Police Trust Fund is here to do.
Okay, I'm happy you brought in the issue of your background, because when we talk about the police, it's one issue that triggers Nigerians. Looking at it from your background and even from where you sit right now, where are we getting it wrong with the way we're going about policing in Nigeria?
Thank you. My dad passed, funny enough, May 12, 2009, but he was one of the first set of people that actually brought the current, what we call the mobile police force. They went to Malaysia for training, and then I think it was Sunday Adeusi, late, that was the Inspector General of Police. So this was probably about 1982, 83. Policing, the major issue we've been having is that I personally, coming from this background, feel that we have a military mindset in this country. We have been very militarized. We've had military regimes, and even in our democracy, we've had military generals wear uniforms and come. And one of the major issues is, we all know, police and the military, they're not the best of friends. So when we've always had heads that have not looked into the police, they've not cared for the police, and even them not care, we ourselves as public, as the private citizens, we haven't really focused on our policing. Now when it comes to enforcing of laws and all of these things, it's not the military's work, no, it's the police work. Internal security is the police work.
True.
These are not works for those other agencies. And so there's not been a good focus on the Nigerian police force in terms of welfare, in terms of their training, in terms of how we cater to them as a whole. So we are even looking for how we can shift that dynamic, that discussion towards the police. The more we can now focus on our policing, the more we would get a more responsive efficient and effective police force.
What do you mean by focusing on our police?
Now, when I mean focusing, we look at our training facilities. Thank God you people from the media, you've probably gone around and seen what the police barracks look like. When I came on board, I was able to visit a lot of the training facilities across the nation. And I remember once we went to Norwata in River State, and after we finished, we saw the governor, and I told him, man, this is a facility that's meant to train CTU officers, personnel. In all honesty, I don't know if I will say this well, but you cannot train an animal in some of the training facilities that police officers are being trained. From where I'm coming from, I grew up in Police College, Ikeja. One of the first places I visited as the Executive Secretary of Police Trust Fund was the same Police College, Ikeja, going back to Lagos. And from what I know about 40 years ago to now, you can't compare. So it seems that there's never been that focus on those places, like keeping the facility up to in good form, the training curriculums, all of those things. There has been a neglect in those facilities. And as I say, we shift the focus. We should not neglect the police force. We should actually focus on the Nigerian police force. It's still the heaviest workforce that we have when it comes to one singular agency with over 350 police officers. But still, we're still under-policed based on our population. So we need to get to a place whereby we have enough police officers, UN standard, for the country. Also, the training of those police officers have to be taken into consideration. So when I say focus, we need to now focus on the police, the workforce, the training of the workforce, and how we cater to that workforce, because it comes back to us as the public.
Well, before you came in, one of the things that have been coming up with the trust fund has been the issue of its management of the funds that it's been entrusted with. How is that?
Well, I use the word now, there's a new sheriff in town. So one of the things, I wouldn't want to discuss too much about the past, but we're meant to do public audited accounts.
Yes.
So transparency, public audited accounts. I think the more we public our accounts audited, the more transparent we are. And one thing I've also done on board is engage more with the public, even with the National Assembly. There's more engagement. So we're going out, we're doing more of a reach out program. So carrying more people along in what it is that we're doing. So it is there for the public to see. This is what we're here for.
Let me take you up on you've not spent a year.
Yes,
if I understand correctly. Okay. So within the time you came in, I'm sure I would say has been a before and after. What did you envisage as you were given the task, and what did you find?
So the funny thing is, I've always been in the police circle and the police, not just from the background I come from, but I've always engaged in. One of the actual jobs I wanted to do coming back from university was to actually join the police force. So, but my mom, a lot of other people, my father-in-law, said, no, the police is not the way it was when your father was there. They discouraged me from it. I kind of feel like this is a divine calling to come here and see how I can give back. So when I came in, there were a lot of, the government bureaucracy, really, that we have to deal with on, want to get things done, but we have to follow A, B, C, D, E, F, almost to Z before we can move forward. And coming from a public sector, I manage my own company. So if it is, hey, let us do this, we do it immediately. So those are the things that I'm trying to, we're adapting to and seeing how we can actually function. But with that, I was also able to realize that thinking out of the box is we can have strategic alliances and partnerships, which is one of the first things I focused on, was with other NDAs, with other agencies, or even private individuals on trying to achieve our mandates. So we're able to sign with agencies, REA, now the Greek. We're looking at clusters, family also, just for things to actually move faster because they too have their own mandates. We can now marry mandates and see how we can push this agenda forward.
When I mentioned earlier that the word police in Nigeria elicits strong emotions. I know people, if they are driving on the road and they see a police, their mood sours immediately. Understanding the challenge before you, training, welfare, these are key issues when you look at it. I mean, when you look at the foreign police officer, gadgets, everything. And when you look at our own police, sometimes the uniforms they wear. How are you hoping, or how are you going about addressing what looks to be a very, very big problem?
Like I said earlier, this problem is over 4 decades.
Yes.
So the addressing of it is collective. Even the government of today needs to address it. And I believe that for once, we might, the first in our history, that we have a demilitarized president. The mindset would now shift from a lot of focus of military to actually policing, and it goes back to the funding. You just discussed uniform. The Inspector General of Police mentioned it. This budget presentation they just had. On the budget line itself, if we just talk about fueling of police officers, of the cars for operation, they can only fuel it for 4 months. The IG said it was on national TV.
Based on the budget?
Yes, based on the budget. Same goes to every other line item. I'll give you an information now. For the police stations, quarterly, there are only about 45,000 for operation. How can 45,000 run a police station today?
So
quarterly. So
I
in
just
a
wanted
month,
to bring that.
Monthly is about 12,000. 45 divided by 4.
And if we break that down to a day,
please do the math. So that's why something like the Police Trust Fund was created, to come in and augment.
So that's why you get to, or you make a call the police, and you say, give me the fuel to fuel the car.
So we now looked at, okay, even if we cannot get this funding, there should be another way to get about it. You know, the government is like, when we now push to the wall, we now start getting creative. We've looked at, we're talking about EVC cars. We just don't want it REA. How can we solarize our police stations? How can we solarize the training facilities? We have abundant sunlight. We don't have to collect money for that. The only thing might be capital intensive to buy the solar panels and the batteries, but that one-off cost we can. So those are the things we're looking at now, how we can establish those type of infrastructure across board with the police stations, with the training facilities, housing, barracks, and all of that.
Okay. The issue of equipment.
It goes back to purchasing, the purchasing power itself. We are not producing things like this. So by the time you now look at the budgetary line allocation, yes, I know the last one we said something trillion. Let's convert it to dollars. Because at the end of the day, we are going to import. I won't say most, but all of these things. Mm-hmm. How much was budgeted? How much is it per capita for us to be able to purchase all of these equipments? So there's a clamor, there's a need for how we can achieve this with different means, not just the purchase. So luckily, we're talking to other governments, agencies, and also even international donors to come and see how they can come in and help us in this purchase, in this how to bring our police force to world standards, 21st century policing, And we've been able to get a few people, few countries. Germany has come on board, even the UAE, Qatar Foundation, to see how we can push this, how they can help in funding so we could be able to go out and purchase these equipments for these officers.
So when you're carrying out this plan, I'm wondering how you go about it. Is it that you pick one unit and then try and use them as a model, and then, or how do you work?
So far, we're looking at those type of things. Okay. We're looking at one unit, even things like the stations and places. We look at, for now, everyone we looked at stations. We're going to commission a smart station the next 2 weeks, actually, in Abuja here. So those came in partnerships with REA and things. We've done like 20 kilowatts of light there. We're trying to get software solutions when it comes to forensics and all those things, those type of stations. But what we've keyed in is, okay, let's do it in one per geopolitical zone. It's about 6 stations. Mm-hmm. Let's see how it goes. If we can, then we can now replicate that across the nation. We now have a fixed budget or how we can capture these kind of things and scale up.
Let me understand. You said something about this smart
police station.
Please give what.
So what we're looking at is, first of all, off-grid. Now we've just done 20 kilowatts. So ideally no generators there for now. And CCTVs, we're also looking at bringing in softwares for forensic capturing and all of that in that police station. So it's going to be first of its kind in Nigeria. That we should be commissioned in about 2 weeks in Pape. We started construction there in December. We've actually finished. They're just doing the landscape and all that, and we're trying to get these solutions on board right now before the commissioning.
So the policemen and the officers there will benefit from trainings to know how to
use those stations. So IT compliant police officers, very police-friendly, people-friendly location. Because at the end of the day, the police is the first contact between public and government. So you shouldn't look at a police station and be scared to go to a police station to maybe report a case or anything. So we want it to be as people-friendly as possible. So looking at it at 21st century policing, we've tried to capture as much technology as much as we can into this station to see how we can provide it good for the police officers and also for the public.
So for the, let me ask about the issue of the communication. It's still painful that as we are here, we seem not to have a central communication, like you have abroad where if there's a problem, you can call. Yeah, is that something that falls under your mandate?
No, that's past my pay grade, but we would, with solutions as such, the police comes in to discuss, or they're interested in this. And like I said earlier, they might not have the actual budgetary allocation to maybe capture the whole thing. Then we as a trust fund can come and supplement such efforts by the Nigerian police force.
Okay, but you are in charge of trying to see how they can at least communicate within themselves in the station.
Yes.
And help them with
those type of equipment to try to make sure we provide as much as it's for that. Then the police, the MPF itself, with the IG will be able to deploy.
So the smart one will start here, the first initial one. Then we'll have in each.
We have one now in Ebonyi. We're rounding up. We should be doing those commissioning soon, probably in the next 1 month. We should have Ebonyi coming up. We should have Abuja. We'll have Kogi.
Tell me about that forensic. It's a very interesting one that I'm looking.
So we're looking for how we can going back to how we can data capture. Mm-hmm. So once you have like a case reported or someone being arrested, there should actually be a centralized capturing station, which we have in some
silos.
Yes. So the whole idea all of those type of things. The only place that would really have forensic would be like Alagmo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Alagmo does. First CID has. So we're just trying to see how we can centralize this information. So if you're arrested in Abuja, I can type you in Osun State, type you in Yobe and see that, oh, this guy committed such and such here, or such a case was reported in this location. We can also have such files, just in another location.
Now, I've been trying to follow part of your mandate. We've talked about the issue of the police stations. I would like to touch on the issue of welfare. When we talk about the issue of welfare, it appears it's also is a major point. Talk to people, they'll be like, that's part of the problems they face from police. They want to seem to collect some from them. What's your agency doing about that?
One of the things we did, coming on board, one of the first things I looked at, I mentioned earlier, is about strategic partnerships and alliances. We signed an agreement with Family Homes Funds, on how we want to build houses for the police officers. Now, when it comes to that, we're not looking at barracks living, but actually for police officers to own homes. So one of the things we're able to do is, like, for most states I've visited, the governor's conversations we're having with the excellencies is how they can provide land for us. We've gone with Family Homes Funds. We have an agreement to build 2-3 bedroom bungalows for police officers across the nation. So in each state, because even from let's start now, like the recruitment that's ongoing, the federal government wants to recruit about 30,000 police officers. We mentioned earlier, is one of the heaviest workforce is the Nigerian police force. They are already being, from their salaries, they're already paying for this NHF, this funding. So the highest funder of the Federal Mortgage Bank is the Nigerian Police Force. So we're looking at how we can get land for no cost. State governments, governors are their CSOs of their chief security officers of their states, provide land for us. We look for how we can get funding to build 2-3 bedroom bungalows for police officers in their respective states of origins. Now, what that does is that it ties your office, it ties you to a house. You own a home. You know that the police provided you a house coming in as a police officer. It will make you function better. I'm not thinking of a case whereby today now, if a police officer dies in line of duty, maximum 2 to 3 months, they might have to move their families out of the barracks. Those are the things that will make, he's a human being. Those are the things that will make them look at, it's better to grab as much as possible. But if I know I have a house, and that even if I die, more reason why my house will be there, I will perform my duties better. We've also looked into an agreement with the National Agricultural Land Development Agency, NALDA, how we can have farm clusters also with these housing. So we have an agreement now with the Enugu State Government, whereby they're providing land for us for housing, for building units for police officers, and also land for agriculture. Now, with Agric, it looks at not the police officer himself being the farmer, but his family members, wives, even if it's his brothers, cousin, whatever it is. So that is an extra income generating avenue for the family, and at the same time, it keeps them busy. They can provide the basics, which is food. So we're trying to look at whereby housing is captured, feeding is captured. We want to increase the vocations when it comes to training with tailoring and all of that. So those things can drive down their cost of living. I know I have a home. That worry is off, that burden is off. My salary is already automatically paying for it one way or the other. I'm not scrounging around looking for how I can make those ends meet, because at the end of the day, it's more about what do I take back home. But once we can reduce that pressure off the officer, then he will be able to focus on his day-to-day job better.
Another issue for me is training. A lot of what you've spoken about now are plans that will take time to address. If you're going to build, you have to build do that. Equipment, like we said, there's the issue of funding, sourcing that. But the issue of training appears for many to be what is most needed for the police, because it is needed now.
Yes.
How can we get a police officer that has a modern mindset to policing in Nigeria today?
Like you mentioned, it's the training. One thing we did when I came on board, I think so far, the major thing that I've been able to do was actually focus on the training of police officers. I think in about 4-5 months, we'll be able to do about 1,000 and something training of police officers across, because it is the major issue. I say charity begins at home. You, not just even the training of the officers, I mentioned earlier, the training facilities. So even if you have a good training curriculum, but the environment that you are training that officer is not ideal, is not conducive, you're not going to get much out of him. And coming on board, I've seen that is our major problem. It's actually the way we train our police officers. The facilities are not up to date. The facilities are not in good shapes. That's just the truth. So we need to rehabilitate and upgrade our facilities. I don't think those facilities have been touched since the day they were built. Some maybe pre-independence, they've just been the way they've been. So until we focus and shift towards how we can bring those back up to standard, it's still an issue that's the major focus. It's that training facility and the training of the police officers.
So for a Nigerian who is desirous of a change, and we're talking of plans, how soon would he have to wait to see a police that is benefiting from all this?
How soon? We'll put a timeline to it. Our first, like I said earlier, we have a trust fund that was only set up for 6 years for a 40-year problem.
And didn't start operating even
immediately. We put these things in pipeline. We ideally, where I'm trying to even capture first is like, you see, watch them, catch them young and watch them grow.
Yeah.
This first 30,000 that they're going recruiting, we need to change their mindsets from the onset. Now, the ones that are already in the system, how do we recalibrate their mindsets is what we're working on. And that's why I said earlier that this is not just a task for the trust fund and the police itself, but it's a task for all of us. And that's why our mandate is to also reach out to the public, reach out to the companies on how we can get this assistance. The more funding we can have, the faster we can get this achieved. So it's still one of the bane is still our funding and the resource issue. I wouldn't always use say funding for it's more of a resource case. Because if you want to come in now and say you want to fund a training of police officers and it fits our curriculum and fits what we want to do, please go ahead. We buy those ideas. So that's what I say, resources is what we're lacking. The more resources we can have into pushing this agenda, the better it is for all of us.
The 30,000, you said, that are coming in. Very insightful, like you said. If it's possible to start that as they are coming in, they're coming with a new, even though one would say they're still going to operate within the...
We will with the paragraphs and the yes.
But how is that? Is there any plan to ensure that as they're coming in, they can benefit from the new direction?
That is what it is. So based on even Mr. President's Renewed Hope agenda, we're looking at how this 30,000, the housing, for instance, it comes in. So you're coming into you're coming in as a police officer. We're giving you a house. Because ideally, for the first 5 years, these police officers go back to their states of origin. So your states, you are providing land, we're providing housing for you, we're providing land for Greek farming for you. So we're trying to see how we can cater to a lot of all this welfare, whereby it's not just... because when it comes to salaries and all of that, it's past my own pay grade. But the ones we can look at is these things to augment the police officer as a whole. Now you're coming in that mindset, then we, as with what we're looking at budgetary, is focus on those training facilities, the training curriculums, the rehabilitation of those facilities. So those officers are coming into better trained facilities. The police too, they have things that are tied to their job performance and their job itself. Because I know I have a house, if I'm dismissed from office, I might lose my house. So because I don't want to be dismissed, I want to keep my house, I want to keep my family, I wouldn't, I'll do as much as possible to tread a more disciplined line into performing my job functions.
Let me take you to the point of internal strife. We have a lot of issues across the country. We have banditry, we have kidnapping and all that. Now, some will say this is exposing failings of the police, that they are supposed to be the ones handling this. But as it is, it appears this has fallen on the military. I don't know, what's your own take from your background?
From my background, as I would mentioned earlier, we internal security, you rightfully said, is charged as the police's first line. That's their duty, protect and serve Nigeria as a whole. But we have shifted from that to actually a militarized mindset. So until we come back, the training of a police officer is to interact one-on-one with the public, but the military is not. They're not. So we're trying to encourage more of community policing. Police, to every ward, to every local government, every ward, there's a police officer. So it shows that when it comes to government, governance, and the public, the first line is the police. So until we shift our mindsets, government, the public, all of us, that the police needs to be charged with our internal security. And when we mean charge, it's not just go and do, but even the funding of go and do has to be there to back them up. Because from what I've even known, in history until today, when the police is working, they work. But the problem is the resources to carry out their job functions. So there's not been enough funding, enough of all of that to the police force, which has to be looked into.
Okay, is there any way where the agency may be focusing on those at the front in terms of they getting maybe the first, because it appears they're dealing police in those areas, Jos, in Benue, they are getting it tougher than
most others.
Is there a way maybe they're focusing on trying to see they get first?
We will provide, and ideally the police itself, and thankfully the Inspector General of Police, they would now direct how they want to
the interventions.
Thank you very much.
Interventions. Okay. Let me take you up on the structure we have right now. You've mentioned the issue of number. And I do know that ideally, when you think of our population and how many police officers we're supposed to have to how many Nigerians, the number is out of sync. And it has led to the discussion of whether we actually need to decentralize our own police. Because by and large, it's for efficiency. Those that are making the call, they're saying this will make it more efficient, more easy. Taking into consideration our number, I don't know, where do you lie on that debate?
So this is my personal take.
Yes.
Not...
Yes,
and I think based on history and background, first of all, I feel, and thank God I went to school in a country like America that has a decentralized police force. But they have a central police force that is very strong. Very, very strong. We call that the FBI. We need to, there are two things I always look at when we clamor for state police. First of all, we need to have a very strong central police for checks and balance. Then number two, when they talk about state policing, Today, I know it's not all states that pay the minimum wage salaries. So how would those states, we're talking about financing and funding, how would they fund the police force? The budgetary allocation, the purchase of equipment, how are they going to fund the salaries of those police officers at the whole? As we speak now, they cannot just fund the public servants in their own space. How would they now fund the police as a whole? So there are two things that I feel like we're not ripe enough for, as we need to have a stronger central police force. So the stronger the current NPF is, the more we can now clamor for a state police. The more states can fund themselves, then we can now clamor for. It's not all states that will be able to, that can afford it.
Okay.
You might be lucky, maybe a Lagos, a Delta, based on their revenue. But about that, I don't know which other states can go ahead and say they want to fund the state police.
But what it leaves us with is right now, when we talk about community policing, it leaves us looking like how you don't have the men to trickle down to the communities.
So this 30,000 we're doing, UN recommendation, I think, is 1 to 400 citizens. And if we're looking at 250 million Nigerians, we're looking about almost 700. One of the mandates I've even come on board is like, if I can leave this office, maybe, who knows, depending on the extension of the act also, that we have a workforce of well-trained 500. And we have not gotten to the number, because the number, yes, we should be getting close to 1 million, it's about 800 and something thousand if we actually go based on the UN recommendation. But even 500 well-trained police officers, we would be able to do a whole lot more. Now, when it comes to this community policing, this recruitment, they send these police officers back to their states of origin. So that is how we want to start the community policing. But we need to now also make the police force attractive to join. So that is why we now came in with all this housing, things to augment the housing, the agric. How can we now make the police force more attractive? So you as a citizen know that, okay, I want to go and join the police. One of the things the U.S. Marine always used to do, if people joined in the Marine to finish college, to go to school, maybe for free Medicare, for free education, we need to move towards that line. You join the police force, free healthcare, free housing, then you have more citizens joining. So that is what we are looking at, how we can make the Nigerian police force a more attractive agency for its citizens to join in.
Yeah, because we just using the example you did, you can go to a primary school, ask the child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Say, I want to be a police officer. But here, even you said
but sadly,
you were not allowed.
I wasn't allowed. But I think God has put me here to do my own quota, to see how, because I always tell you, police is my constituency. My dad did not do 2 jobs. So every training, everything I've had in my life, I would still associate it to the police. So this is me trying to see how I can give back to my upbringing.
For those of you, because I'll put you now in the police, so like whether you're joined or by appointment or whether you're with the police, image, they say, is everything.
Yes.
Perception goes a long way. What can be done to begin to reverse that? What do you, when you and your team sit and you look at it, yes, we've mentioned some of it, but largely I'm now looking from research, what are the ways we can turn it around? That you see a policeman or you hear the word the police and a bright light.
I still personally feel is how we cater to the police. We personally, as the citizens, the welfare of the police officers. And that's why I say we need, and it is why this type of engagements are quite necessary. I said we're coming in as a trust fund for more of an outreach. Outreach in the sense that we need to know that we have a policing problem, all of us generally, and that we too are tasked to how we can change this narrative. Education-wise, there are schools, there are police schools. Why are those curriculums not upgraded? Why don't we have, whereby you send your children to schools? I don't have to worry about those school fees. Police have schools all up to now, to Udil, to university level. Those curriculums, why don't we bring those things up to standard? So I know that my own child as a police goes to primary, secondary, and university. As a police officer, I'm not worried about that. As a police officer, I have a house. As a police officer, my family can be farming, they can be doing extra things to generate revenue. Once a police officer has that, he's more entitled. He feels there's a sense of entitlement. I will perform my job functions better. You will not see me on the road and offer me bribe and I'll collect it.
So from what I'm hearing from you now, you are saying society has failed the police, and that's why we're here.
We have.
Really?
We have. And that's why I say for the first time, we have a demilitarized president. Over time, we've had. So it is the same society over time that we have constantly. The police has been going like this. It's been a steady decline, but they have not crashed. The moment, if God forbid, there is ever such, it will affect all of us. We cannot afford it. And that's why there is a clamor for all, the public, all of us to know. We have. We really have. I went into the training facilities. I will show you some pictures. You cannot send your dog to that place. So you have a human being join the police force, goes into the training facilities and comes out an animal. That's my take.
And we have to address that.
We have to address it.
When you took on this task, what do you hope to leave as your own tenure, as part of your achievement of your tenure?
Now goes back to answering this question, is the mindset of the image of the police, the mindset of the citizens to the police. It should be more positive, you understand? We need them as much as they need us. So the more I want to be able to leave knowing that we came, we saw police force. Now we have a well catered for police force. We have a better catered police force, literally. In terms of training, in terms of the actual welfare, housing, uniforms. We talked about the salary. A full officer, they cannot kit a full officer based on the budgetary allocations, meaning from beret to lanyards to belt to boots. It can't work. But we want to be able to leave knowing that can work. It might not even be the budgetary allocation when it comes to uniform now. We've looked at things like there are tailoring departments in the police force. They have mechanic departments in the police force, the transport office. Why don't those departments sew uniforms for the officers? The ones that are meant to be free, let them be free. The ones that are meant to pay, let them pay. The system is already there. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We just want the wheel to function. That focus needs to go into that place. That's what we're looking for.
And we hope we find it. Thank you so much. It's been a lovely time talking with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Well, that is our discussion this week. I want to know what your position is on the submissions of our guests. Do you have a different view? What will you recommend? Let's continue the conversation online. Our social media handles and the email address is here. Just get in touch. We also have past episodes on our YouTube channel. You can search for Newsnight under playlist and just settle back and enjoy. Thanks for spending your time with us. Good night.